more on this story, I'm joined by Melinda Haring, Deputy Director of the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center. Thanks so much for being with us here on France 24. For the last 2 years, the U.S. has been the largest provider of military aid to Kyiv, but there's now a reluctance on the part of Republicans in the U.S. Congress to continue funding that war effort. So from your standpoint, can Ukraine win this war without the financial help of the U.S.?
Hi, Monty. It's going to be very tough. So Senator Schumer just got back from Kyiv, and he said that Zelensky's message there was very plain. If you give us the assistance, we can win. Without it, it's going to be very, very hard. And this is a pivotal year. We know that the Ukrainians are running out of ammunition and that the European Union and the Ukraine supporters in Europe they can't bridge that gap quickly enough. So all eyes are on Speaker Mike Johnson, the leader of the House of Representatives, who's refusing to bring this bill to the floor, even though 74% of Americans want support for Ukraine to continue.
Well, of course, there's a presidential election happening in November in the U.S. So what would it mean for the war effort if Donald Trump is elected to a second term? By all accounts, he's responsible for pressuring Republicans to block the current funding for Ukraine.
That's right, Monty. So there's two schools of thought on this. There's one that I would describe as out of touch with reality, but I will give them airing of their views. So Donald Trump in his first administration was tough on Russia. He authorized javelins when Obama wouldn't. He kept sanctions in Crimea in place. So he did do some good things. In my view, that's because of strong bureaucrats who kept that pressure in place. But I think it's very, very dire for Ukraine if Trump is elected. He's already threatened. He doesn't like NATO. He has threatened to not use the Article 5 provisions, not to back up our European allies. So he does that a few more times, and no one's going to take the United States very seriously with the commitments that we've made. So for Ukraine, I expect him to zero out assistance if he were to become president. And I don't even think he has to pull us out of NATO. I think he can just threaten Article 5. Like, he can say, I'm not going to back up Europe if it's attacked. And that would be enough to really show that NATO's a paper tiger.
Well, so with the future of the U.S. help now unclear, how confident are you that European allies could step in and fill the void?
So European allies are stepping in and filling the void. The problem is that they're not doing it quickly enough. So the EU promised 1 million shells by this spring, but they've only delivered 330,000. And North Korea has delivered 1 million to Moscow. So they're making another pledge. But the problem is you can't just flip a switch. It takes a long time to put these systems into place. So really, it's imperative that the House of Representatives pass this assistance to Congress. And even though it doesn't look so good, a majority of Americans support this aid to Ukraine, and there's a way to force the speaker to bring the bill. There's a bunch of sort of arcane legislative ways to do this. So it's not game over. I talked to a bunch of insiders today. They say that there's a 60% chance that this bill will pass in the next 2 months.
Before I let you go, I just want to ask you, I know it's hard to predict these things, but how much longer do you think this war will last? And is there pressure for Kyiv to seek some kind of territorial settlement with Russia to end the war?
Monty, I don't see an end in sight. So this is not Moscow's first rodeo in Kyiv. We're commemorating the second anniversary of the full-scale invasion, but Russia went into Ukraine in 2014 and illegally annexed Crimea. Moscow doesn't show any desire whatsoever to negotiate, and after all of the war crimes we've seen, Ukraine can't do it either. They will have no security unless Moscow is defeated.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Melinda Haring, Deputy Director of the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center. Thanks so much for joining us here on France 24.
Thank you.